The first alien landing craft touched down in the middle of Seoul just as the sun was rising over the city squad leader. Grix stepped out of his transport ship and looked around at the strange human settlement. The streets were completely empty, which seemed odd, but not too worrying. Most species ran and hid when the Empire arrived. Behind him, 20 Korthak soldiers emerged from the landing craft, their energy weapons ready for any resistance they might encounter. The aliens were 7 feet, tall with gray scaly skin and 4 arms each. They had conquered so many worlds that this felt like just another routine day at work. "Where are all the humans?" Grix muttered to his second in command. "Sergeant Thex, these creatures should be running around screaming or trying to fight us with their primitive weapons." Sergeant Thex scanned the area with his weapon detector. "Nothing, sir. No energy signatures, no movement, no signs of life. It's like they all just disappeared, at the same time similar." Scenes were playing out in major cities all around Earth. In Tokyo, alien soldiers found empty streets and buildings that seemed abandoned, but still had power running through them. In London, the invaders discovered parks and roads that looked recently used but had no people anywhere. In New York, the Empire troops walked through a city that felt like a ghost town. The aliens were confused but not worried. Empty cities meant easy conquest. But the humans had not disappeared. They were just very good at hiding. Private Kim Tae-hyung crouched in a tunnel 50 feet below the Seoul street where the aliens were standing. He could see everything through tiny cameras hidden in streetlights and traffic signals. The tunnel he was in connected to hundreds of other tunnels that ran beneath the entire city like a giant underground spider web. His earpiece crackled with the voice of Captain Lee Ha-yun. "All units, this is command. The aliens have landed exactly where we predicted they would. Phase 2 begins." Now Kim Tae-hyung smiled and checked his equipment. He was wearing what looked like ordinary civilian clothes, but hidden underneath was body armor made from materials that did not exist in any textbook. His weapon looked like a simple handheld device, but it contained technology reverse-engineered from captured alien scout ships. He climbed up through a hidden entrance that opened behind a fake wall in a coffee shop. The shop looked abandoned from the outside, but it was actually a carefully disguised military outpost. Kim Tae-hyung walked out the front door and onto the street where squad leader Grix and his soldiers were standing. The aliens immediately pointed their weapons at him, but Kim Tae-hyung just smiled and walked closer. He had been practicing this moment for months. "Excuse me," he said in perfect Korthak language. "I think you might be lost." The aliens froze in shock. No human should have been able to speak their language. The Empire had never shared their communication systems with any conquered species. How was this soft creature talking to them in words they could understand? Before squad leader Grix could respond, Kim Tae-hyung pressed a small button on the device in his hand. Instantly, the entire street came alive. What the aliens had thought were abandoned buildings suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. Windows that looked dark and empty lit up with targeting lasers, rooftops that seemed bare sprouted massive gun turrets. Streetlights turned into sensor arrays that locked onto every alien soldier. Building walls slid away to reveal missile launchers that had been disguised as air conditioning units. The empty street filled with human soldiers who seemed to appear out of nowhere. They emerged from manholes, from hidden doors, from underground passages that the aliens had never detected. Every human was armed with weapons that looked far more advanced than anything the Empire scouts had observed. "You are surrounded," announced Kim Tae-hyung, still speaking in the alien language. "Your ships in orbit are about to have some problems, too." Up in space, Commander Vextar was watching his invasion proceed smoothly on multiple screens. The landing parties had secured positions in 12 major human cities, and there had been no resistance whatsoever. This was going to be the easiest conquest in Empire history. "Sir, we are receiving some strange readings from the planet's surface," reported Lieutenant Grix. "Energy signatures are appearing in all the target cities Our troops are requesting. Backup. Vexter frowned. Backup against what? These humans have no military technology. Before Lieutenant Crix could answer, the ship shook violently. Alarms started blaring throughout the bridge, and emergency lights began flashing red. What was that, Vextar? Shouted. The tactical officer looked at his screens in disbelief. Sir, we are under attack. Multiple energy beams are coming from the planet's surface. Our shields are being hit by some kind of railgun system. Impossible. Vextar snarled. The humans have no orbital weapons. We scanned the entire planet, but as he watched his screens, more and more weapon systems were revealing themselves all across Earth. The aliens had been looking at cities that appeared normal from space, but were actually massive, military installations in disguise. Every major building in every major city had been secretly converted into a fortress. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Selgi stood in her command center deep beneath Seoul, watching as her carefully planned trap unfolded perfectly. She had spent 3 years designing this moment, studying alien tactics and building countermeasures for every possible Empire strategy. Fire all batteries, she ordered calmly. Hidden launch sites all around Seoul opened up, revealing gun systems that had been disguised as subway construction projects. The weapons fired streams of metal projectiles at incredible speed, directly at the alien ships in orbit. The projectiles were not just simple metal. They were smart ammunition, guided by artificial intelligence systems that could adapt to enemy defensive measures. The Empire ships that had seemed so powerful suddenly found themselves under attack from weapons they did not recognize. Several smaller vessels exploded immediately, their shields overwhelmed by the unexpected firepower. Larger ships began taking damage and trying to retreat to safer positions. But the humans were not finished. Major Park Ji-won sat in the cockpit of a fighter spacecraft that officially did not exist. The ship was hidden in an underground hangar that looked like a parking garage from above. It was built using a combination of human engineering and technology taken from crashed alien scout ships' launch. All fighters, he heard through his radio. This is what we trained for, around the world. Similar hidden air bases opened up, revealing fleets of human spacecraft that moved unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. The ships were fast and agile, using flight patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They attacked the alien fleet in coordinated groups, striking hard and then disappearing back into Earth's atmosphere before the Empire could respond. The alien ships were designed for overwhelming firepower and direct combat. They were not prepared for enemies that refused to fight fair battles. The human pilots used tactics borrowed from Earth's best fighter pilots combined with technology that made their ships nearly Phoenix Squadron. This is Phoenix leader called Major Park Ji-won as he led his unit into battle. Remember, we are not trying to win an honorable fight. We are trying to make them sorry they came here. The human fighters swarmed around the Empire ships like angry bees, attacking from all directions once they would fire their weapons and then vanish using some kind of stealth technology that made them invisible to alien sensors. When the Empire tried to target them, the human ships would reappear somewhere completely different and attack again, back. On the ground, squad leader Grix found himself trapped in what had seemed like an empty street just minutes before. Now he was surrounded by human soldiers who spoke his language, carried advanced weapons, and seemed to know exactly how Empire troops were trained to fight. Your commanders told you this would be easy, did they not? Asked Kim Tae-hyung as he watched more alien landing craft get shot down by hidden surface-to-air missiles. They probably said humans were primitive and helpless. How Grix managed to ask, "How do you have these weapons? How do you speak our language? How did you hide all of this?" Kim Tae-hyung smiled. "We have been watching you for a long time, learning from you, preparing for you. Did you really think we spent the last few centuries just fighting each other? We were practicing." All around the city, similar scenes were playing out. Empire soldiers who had expected easy victory found themselves facing enemies who seemed to know their every move. Human troops appeared and disappeared using underground tunnel systems that connected every major building. The aliens discovered that what they had thought was a primitive city was actually a three-dimensional battlefield designed specifically to trap invaders, the humans, fought like nothing the Empire had ever encountered. They did not try to meet alien strength with strength. Instead, they used speed, intelligence, and tactics that turned the Empire advantages into weaknesses. The aliens were stronger, but the humans were smarter. The aliens had better armor, but the humans knew exactly where to hit them. The aliens had superior numbers, but the humans controlled the battlefield. Within 2 hours of landing, the Empire found itself losing an invasion for the first time in their military history. Commander Vextar stared at his screens in shock as reports came in from around the planet. His ground forces were trapped, his orbital fleet was under constant attack, and somehow the humans were using weapons that should not have existed. This was impossible. These were supposed to be primitive creatures who had barely learned to leave their own planet. But as he watched the massive dark ships of the Korthak Empire moved through the cold black space like giant metal beasts hunting for their next meal. Commander Vextar stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the small blue and green planet that spun slowly in front of them. His 4 eyes glowed with satisfaction as he watched Earth turn in the darkness. This would be conquest number 74, and it looked like it would be the easiest one yet. Vextar had been conquering worlds for the Empire for over 20 years, and he knew what a dangerous planet looked like. A dangerous world had massive space stations floating around it with big guns pointing outward. A dangerous world had patrol ships flying back and forth watching for enemies. A dangerous world sent out warning messages, telling invaders to stay away or face destruction. Earth had none of these things. Instead, Earth looked like a planet full of soft, weak creatures who spent their time playing with small, glowing rectangles. The Empire scouts had been watching the humans for 8 months now, and what they saw made them laugh. The humans seemed more interested in taking pictures of their food than building weapons. They spent hours every day staring at screens, showing other humans doing silly dances. They even fought wars with each other using primitive explosive devices instead of proper energy weapons. It was almost sad how unprepared these humans were. Lieutenant Crix walked up to Commander Vextar and bowed his scaly head. The young officer held a data pad in his clawed hands. "Sir, our final scans of the planet are complete. The humans have no orbital defenses, no military space fleet, and no advanced weapon systems. Their most powerful weapons appear to be simple. Chemical explosives launched from metal tubes." Vextar made a sound that was like laughter but more cruel. "Perfect. These creatures will surrender the moment they see our ships, just like the Zephyrians did, just like the mollusk people. Did just like all the others did. But down on Earth, things were not what they seemed." 300 feet below the busy streets of Seoul, Captain Lee Hyun sat in a room filled with glowing screens and humming computers. The underground bunker was hidden, so well that even people walking directly above it had no idea it existed. Lee Hyun watched the alien ships on his monitors and felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment he had been training for his entire military career. Sir, the alien fleet is moving into position exactly where our computer models predicted they would. Lieutenant Park Minji sat at a control station nearby, her fingers moving quickly across her keyboard. She was young, but she was one of the best computer specialists in the Korean military. The neural interface crown on her head let her control multiple systems at once, just by thinking about them. Lee Hyun nodded and pressed a button on his chair. "Attention all underground command centers around the world. This Is Sol Base Operation Silent Earth is now active. Repeat Operation Silent Earth is now active all over the planet. Similar messages were being sent to hidden military bases buried deep underground. In a secret facility beneath London, Colonel James Morrison received the signal and began activating weapon systems that had been hidden for 3 long years. In a bunker under Tokyo, General Yamamoto Kenji started powering up defense networks that looked like ordinary city infrastructure from above. In a command center, below New York, General Sarah Washington began uploading battle plans to artificial intelligence systems that had been learning alien combat patterns for months. The truth was that Earth had been preparing for this invasion, since the first alien probe had been detected at the edge of the solar system 2 years ago. But the humans had done something that no other species in the galaxy had ever attempted. They had decided to look weak while secretly becoming strong. Every major government on Earth had worked together on the deception. While the world above continued with normal life, underground teams of scientists, engineers, and soldiers had been building the most advanced defense system in human history. They had studied every recording of the Empire destroying other worlds. They had analyzed alien technology from crashed scout ships. They had learned the Empire attack patterns and built specific countermeasures for each one. The humans had discovered something important about the Korthak Empire. The aliens were very good at fighting enemies who fought back in predictable ways. They could easily destroy fleets that met them in open space battle. They could overwhelm planetary defenses that tried to stop them with conventional weapons, but they had never fought an enemy that pretended to be helpless while secretly preparing a trap back on his flagship. Commander Vextar was feeling very pleased with himself. The invasion would begin in just a few hours, and his soldiers were excited about another easy victory. The Empire troops were already loading into their landing craft, preparing to drop down onto the planet's surface. They expected the humans to either run away screaming or fall to their knees and beg for mercy. "What are your orders for the ground assault?" Sir asked Lieutenant Crix Vex's Tar, waved one of his 4 arms casually. "Send the first wave to the major population centers. Make sure they see our superior firepower. Destroy a few buildings to show them what happens to those who resist. Then wait for the surrender messages to start coming in. These soft creatures will give up within hours." The Empire had used this strategy successfully on dozens of worlds. Most species would fight back desperately for a few days, then realize they could not win and surrender to avoid total destruction. The Korthak Empire preferred this method because it left the conquered planets mostly intact and ready to provide resources and slave labor, but the Empire had never met humans before, and they did not understand what humans were really like, down in his bunker. Lee Hyun was watching the alien landing craft prepare to launch. He turned to Lieutenant Park Minji and smiled grimly. "Are all city defense networks ready?" "Yes, sir. Every major city on Earth is now operating under emergency protocols. All civilian populations have been moved to secure underground shelters. All surface activity is being controlled by artificial intelligence. Systems designed to make everything look normal, and our special surprise for the landing parties, ready and waiting, sir. The moment they set foot on our soil, they are going to learn that humans are not as helpless as we appear." Lee Hyun looked at the screens showing the alien ships getting ready to attack his planet. In a few hours, the Empire would discover that Earth was not just another weak world waiting to be conquered. Earth was a trap that had been 2 years in the making, and the aliens were about to walk right into it. The humans had learned something from studying their own history. The best way to win a fight was not always to be stronger than your enemy. Sometimes the best way to win was to let your enemy think you were weak. While you prepared to hit them harder than they ever expected, Operation Silent Earth was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was much more dangerous than anyone had imagined above ground in the cities of Earth people. went about their normal daily activities, completely unaware that their planet was about to be invaded. The artificial intelligence systems made sure that everything looked perfectly ordinary to the alien observers. Traffic moved, normally lights stayed on, and the internet kept working exactly as it always had. But deep underground, thousands of soldiers and technicians were making final preparations for the most important battle in human history. They had spent months training with weapons and technology that officially did not exist. They had practiced tactics that no military academy had ever taught. They were ready to show the Korthak Empire why invading Earth had been the biggest mistake in their long history of conquest. The stage was set, the trap was ready, and the aliens were about to learn that appearances could be very deceiving. Commander Vex Tar gave the order to begin the invasion, completely confident that by the end of the day, Earth would be another trophy in the Empire collection. He had no idea that he was about to encounter the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever seen, an enemy that looked weak, but was actually stronger than anyone imagined, an enemy called humanity. Commander Vex Tar stood on his bridge watching his invasion fall apart in ways he had never imagined possible. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like what was happening on Earth. His ground forces were trapped, his orbital bombardment was being blocked, and somehow the humans were fighting back with technology that should not have existed. "Sir, our ground commanders are requesting immediate orbital support," reported Lieutenant Crix. "They say the humans have weapons hidden everywhere, and they cannot advance. Then we will burn their cities from space." Vex Tar snarled. "Just like we did to the Centauri rebels, just like we did to the Vegan resistance, charge the main batteries and target their largest population centers." But when the Empire ships tried to fire their planet-killing weapons, something incredible happened. The energy beams that should have destroyed entire city blocks were stopped by massive shield generators that rose up from hidden positions all around Earth. The shields were not visible until the moment they activated, creating giant domes of crackling energy that protected human cities. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Seulgi watched from her command center as the alien bombardment hit Seoul's protective shields. The energy readings on her screens showed that the shields were holding perfectly. They had been designed using captured alien technology, but improved with human engineering that made them stronger than the original Empire version's shield. Generators at 100% power. She reported to her staff. All defensive systems are operating within normal parameters. The shields were just the beginning. Seoul looked like a normal city from above, but underneath the streets was a military complex that stretched for miles in every direction. The humans had spent 2 years turning their cities into fortress systems that could fight back against orbital attack, above ground. The battle continued as human fighters engaged the Empire fleet in running battles through Earth's atmosphere. The alien ships were bigger and more heavily armed, but the human pilots flew like nothing the Empire had ever encountered. They used the planet's gravity and atmosphere to perform maneuvers that should have been impossible. Major Park Ji-won led his squadron through the clouds above Seoul, using flight patterns that made his fighter seem to appear and disappear at will. The human ships were equipped with adaptive camouflage systems that could match the color and texture of clouds, sky, or even empty space. Eagle 2. "This is Eagle Leader," he called to his wingman. "Target the command ship, but do not engage directly. Use the mountain approach and remember what we learned about their blind spots." The human pilots had studied recordings of every Empire space battle for the past year. They knew exactly how alien ships moved, how their weapons tracked targets, and most importantly, how their commanders thought. The humans had designed tactics specifically to exploit weaknesses that the Empire did not even know they had. But the real surprise was still coming. Deep beneath Tokyo, General Yamamoto Kenji was coordinating something that the Empire had never seen before. He was not just defending Earth. He was preparing to take the fight to the enemy. The humans had not spent 2 years just building defensive systems. They had also built something that would change the nature of the war completely. Launch Phase 3. He ordered around the world, hidden. Facilities that looked like ordinary industrial buildings opened up to reveal something impossible. Human ships began rising from concealed launch bays, but these were not fighters or defensive craft. These were full-sized warships that looked nothing like the primitive technology the Empire had observed. The ships were sleek and fast, with hull designs that seemed to bend light around them. They moved through space using propulsion systems that left no energy signature and carried weapons that fired projectiles at nearly the speed of light. The humans had not just reverse-engineered alien technology, they had improved it. Captain Song Yuna commanded one of these ships from a bridge that looked more like a computer interface than a traditional control room. Her crew was connected to the ship's systems through neural links that let them control weapons navigation and shields just by thinking about what they wanted to do. "This is Ghost Ship Actual to all units," she announced over the communication system. "We are weapons free. Engage enemy vessels using protocol. 7. Remember, we are not here to fight fair. We are here to win." The human warships attacked the Empire fleet using tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. They would appear suddenly, fire devastating attacks, and then vanish before the aliens could respond. The Empire found itself fighting enemies that refused to stay in one place long enough to be targeted. Admiral Wang Somin coordinated the space battle from her flagship, which was hidden inside what looked like a large asteroid. The humans had learned to use deception on every level, making their most powerful weapons look like harmless space rocks or communications satellites. The aliens are trying to retreat to defensive positions, she observed, watching the tactical displays, show them that there is nowhere safe to run. What the Empire did not understand was that the humans had turned the entire solar system into a battlefield. Hidden bases on the moon Mars and the asteroid belt began revealing themselves. Armed satellites that had looked like space junk for months suddenly activated their weapon systems. Supply stations that appeared to be simple mining operations opened fire with weapons that could destroy capital ships. For the first time in Empire history, their fleet found itself outnumbered and outgunned by enemies they had expected to defeat in hours. Down on the surface, the ground war was going even worse for the alien invaders, squad leader Grix, and his surviving soldiers had been forced to take shelter in what they thought was an abandoned shopping mall, but even there they were not safe. The building around them was not really abandoned, it was a carefully prepared trap. Every store was, actually, a disguised military position. Every corridor had hidden cameras and sensors. Every room could be filled with sleeping gas or toxic smoke at the touch of a button. Private Kim Tae-hyung appeared at the main entrance, wearing the same civilian clothes, but now carrying a weapon that hummed with energy. The device looked small and simple, but it fired projectiles that could punch through alien armor like paper. "You have two choices," he announced in perfect Korthak. "Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic war conventions. Continue fighting and discover why humans have survived so many wars against each other." The aliens had been trained to fight enemies who used conventional military tactics. They knew how to handle frontal attacks, defensive positions, and even guerrilla warfare. But they had never encountered an enemy that could make an entire city disappear and reappear at will. The humans used their tunnel systems to move troops from building to building, without ever appearing on the surface. They had supply lines that ran hundreds of feet underground, connecting every major structure. They could reinforce any position instantly or evacuate it completely, leaving the aliens fighting empty buildings. What made it worse was that the humans seemed to know everything about Empire combat doctrine. They knew how alien soldiers were trained to move, how they communicated with each other, and exactly what tactics they would use in different situations. The humans had countermeasures prepared for every possible Empire strategy. Sergeant Thex tried to contact his command ship, but found that human jamming systems were blocking all communications. The aliens were cut off from orbital support, trapped in A city that had become a three-dimensional maze designed to kill invaders. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "Kim Tae-hyung, long enough," replied the human. "2 years of preparation, but centuries of practice. We humans have been fighting wars. Since before we could write, we know how to kill things that are bigger and stronger than we are." The psychological impact was devastating. Empire soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds without fear suddenly found themselves afraid to leave. Whatever shelter they could find, every shadow might hide a human soldier. Every sound might be the approach of another attack. Every moment of silence might mean they were being surrounded, back in space. Commander Vexitar was discovering that retreat was not an option either. Human ships seemed to be everywhere, preventing his fleet from reaching the edge of the solar system. His faster-than-light drives were being disrupted by some kind of interference field, and his communication systems could not reach Empire headquarters. "We are completely cut off," he realized. "The humans have somehow isolated us in this system." What Vexitar did not know was that the humans had been intercepting Empire communications for months. They had learned the alien language, broken their encryption codes, and discovered the locations of every Empire base within 50 light years. The isolation was not accidental. It was part of the trap. The humans had not just prepared to defend Earth, they had prepared to make sure that no Empire ship would escape to warn other fleets about human capabilities. As the battle continued into its second day, Commander Vexitar began to understand that this was not just a failed invasion. It was a complete disaster. The Empire had walked into a trap that had been planned with incredible detail and executed with terrifying precision. The humans were not the primitive weaklings the scouts had reported. They were something much more dangerous. They were predators who had been pretending to be prey. 3 days after the invasion began, Commander Vexitar found himself doing something he had never done in 20 years of conquest. He was retreating from a planet. The great Korthak Empire fleet that had destroyed 73 worlds was running, away from a single blue and green world that should have surrendered within hours. But the retreat was not going well. Human ships followed the Empire fleet like hunting wolves, picking off stragglers and damaged vessels. The aliens found that they could not shake their pursuers, no matter how they maneuvered through space. Every time they thought they had escaped, human fighters would appear from nowhere and attack again. "Sir, we have lost 37 ships and over half our ground forces. Lieutenant," Crix reported, his voice shaking. "The humans are not letting us leave the system. Their ships are faster than ours, and they seem to know where we are going before we get there." Vexitar paced his bridge like a caged animal, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. The Empire had conquered entire star systems with smaller fleets than this one. How had a single primitive world managed to destroy so much of his force? "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," announced the communications officer. "Put it on screen." Vexitar snarled. The main display showed a human male in military uniform sitting behind a simple desk. The human looked calm and confident, like someone who held all the winning cards in a game. "General." Kang Minho smiled slightly as he looked directly at the camera commander. "Vexitar," he began speaking, perfect Korthak. "I am General Kang Minho of the United Earth Defense Force. I believe it is time we had a conversation. You will surrender immediately." Human Vexitar roared. "Your planet will be destroyed and your species will be enslaved for this insult to the Empire." "General." Kang chuckled softly. "I think you misunderstand your situation, Commander. You are not in a position to make demands. In fact, you are not even in a position to leave this solar system alive unless we allow it." The screen split, showing images that made Vexitar step backward in shock. Human warships were attacking Empire supply convoys in star systems dozens of light years away. The images showed battles happening simultaneously across multiple sectors of space. "That is impossible," Vexitar whispered. "How are you attacking our bases?" "We never told you where they were." General Kang leaned forward slightly. Did you really think we spent the last few years just sitting on our planet waiting for you to invade us? We have been very busy, Commander. We have been studying your empire, learning your language, intercepting your communications, and most importantly, mapping your supply lines. The truth was even more shocking than what General Kong was revealing. Earth had not just prepared to defend itself, the humans had built a secret fleet of exploration ships that had been mapping Empire territory for over a year. They had identified key supply bases, communication relays, and strategic resources throughout Korthak space. While the Empire thought they were observing a primitive world, human scouts had been infiltrating Empire facilities, learning alien technology, and preparing for a war that would span multiple star systems. The invasion of Earth had been the signal for human forces to begin simultaneous attacks across the entire Empire frontier. How Vextar asked the question that had been haunting him. For days, General Kang smiled again. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, Commander. We have fought each other with sticks and stones. We have fought with swords and shields. We have fought with guns and bombs and chemical weapons. Every war taught us something new about strategy, tactics, and survival. When we finally had a common enemy, we applied everything we had learned. The screen changed to show technical diagrams of Empire ships and weapons, but with human modifications and improvements. The humans had not just reverse-engineered alien technology, they had made it better. We studied your ships and found ways to make them faster. We analyzed your weapons and learned to make them more accurate. We examined your armor and discovered how to make it stronger. But most importantly, we studied your tactics and learned how to beat them. What the Empire had never encountered was an enemy that treated war as a science. Human military analysts had spent months running computer simulations of Empire combat doctrine. They had identified weaknesses and developed countermeasures for every standard alien strategy. The humans had turned warfare into a mathematical problem and then solved it. Your empire has conquered. Many worlds, General Kang continued. But you have always fought enemies who tried to match your strength with their strength. We decided to try a different approach. We made you think we were weak while we became strong. We made you think we were divided while we became united. We made you think we were helpless while we became deadly. Behind the general, more images appeared showing the true scope of human preparation. The underground cities, the hidden weapon systems, the secret space fleet, the infiltration operations. Everything the Empire thought they knew about Earth had been carefully constructed. Lies. You have been watching a performance, Commander. The primitive humans fighting with simple technology, the divided nations arguing with each other, the helpless planet with no defenses. All of it was designed to make you confident enough to attack us with your main fleet. Vextar realized the full horror of what had happened. The Empire had not just lost a battle, they had been tricked into destroying themselves. The humans had used the Empire's own arrogance and overconfidence as weapons against them. But how did you build all this without us detecting it? He asked. General Kong stood up and walked to a wall display that showed a cross-section of Seoul. The city above ground looked normal, but below the surface was a massive military complex that stretched for miles. The humans had built an entire civilization underground while maintaining the illusion of primitive. Surface dwellers, we learned from history. Commander, every time in human history, when a smaller force defeated a larger one, it was because the smaller force was smarter, not stronger. We applied those lessons on a planetary scale. The display showed similar underground complexes in every major city on Earth. The humans had essentially built two civilizations, one that looked primitive and helpless to fool alien observers, and another that was the most advanced military system in the galaxy. We also learned something else from studying your previous conquests. You always attack the same way. You send scouts to gather information, you launch a massive invasion fleet, and you expect quick surrender when faced with overwhelming force. We designed our entire defense strategy around that predictable pattern. What made it worse for the Empire was that the humans had not just defended Earth, they had gone on the offensive. Human strike teams were already operating inside Empire territory using captured alien ships and uniforms to move freely through Korthak space. They were destroying supply depots, sabotaging communication networks, and gathering intelligence for future operations. The war you thought you were starting is already over, General Kang said quietly. You just do not know it yet. Your supply lines are cut. Your communication network is compromised, and your main fleet is trapped in a system you cannot escape. Commander Vextar looked at his tactical displays and saw the truth of the human words. His fleet was indeed trapped. Human ships controlled every exit from the solar system. His ground forces were completely cut off, and his supplies were running dangerously low. What do you want? He asked finally. General Kang. Sat back down, peace, Commander. But peace on our terms. You will order all Empire forces to cease hostilities immediately. You will withdraw from all conquered territories. You will pay reparations to the worlds you have damaged, and you will submit to monitoring by human peacekeeping forces. Those terms are impossible, Vextar protested. The Empire will never agree to such humiliation. General Kang shrugged. Then your Empire will cease to exist. Commander, we have already demonstrated that we can. Destroy your fleets and capture your territory. The only question now is whether you want to save what is left of your civilization or watch us dismantle it, piece by piece. The transmission ended, leaving Vexatar staring at a blank screen. The proud commander who had conquered dozens of worlds now faced a choice that no Empire leader had ever confronted before surrender to a species they had intended to enslave or watch their entire civilization be destroyed by enemies they had thought were helpless. For the first time in Empire history, they were negotiating from a position of complete weakness, and the humans were just getting started. The war that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Korthak Empire had spent centuries as the hunter, moving from system to system and destroying anyone who opposed them. Now suddenly they found themselves being hunted by an enemy. That seemed to appear everywhere at once. Captain Song Yuna stood on the bridge of her stealth ship watching an Empire supply convoy through her sensors. The alien ships were heavily guarded and following standard security protocols, but they had no idea that human forces had been tracking them for weeks. Ghost Squadron, this is Ghost Leader, she announced to her team. Target the lead supply ship. But remember, we are not here to destroy everything. We want them to know they are being hunted. Human attack was swift and surgical. Song Yuna's ships appeared from empty space, fired precisely targeted shots that disabled the alien vessel's engines, and then vanished before the escort ships could respond. The Empire convoy was left floating. Helplessly in space, with their cargo holds full of supplies, they could no longer deliver. Similar attacks were happening throughout Empire territory. Human strike teams seemed to materialize out of nowhere, hit their targets with devastating precision, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The psychological impact was enormous. Empire soldiers who had never known fear began looking over their shoulders constantly. On the Empire supply base at Kepler Station, Commander Zethron watched, his security displays with growing paranoia. 3 convoys had been attacked in the past week, and there had been no trace of the attackers afterward. The humans seemed to be able to move through space without being detected by any Empire sensors. Sir. Another convoy has missed its scheduled check-in, reported his aide, Lieutenant Voss. This is the 5th one this month. Should we send a search and rescue team? No, Zethron replied quickly. Every time we send ships to investigate, they disappear too. These humans are using some kind of technology we do not understand. What the Empire did not know was that human engineers had spent months perfecting stealth systems that could make entire fleets invisible to alien sensors. The technology was based on captured Empire equipment, but improved with human innovations that made it far more effective than the original designs. The humans had also developed something even more dangerous than invisible ships. They had learned to think like their enemies, Colonel. Park Min-soo sat in a hidden base that had been built inside a captured Empire asteroid mining facility. He was studying intelligence reports from human agents who had infiltrated alien territory using disguises so perfect that they could walk freely through Empire installations. The aliens follow very predictable patterns, he explained to his staff. They use the same supply routes, the same communication schedules, the same security procedures. We can predict their movements better than they can. Human intelligence operatives had discovered that the Empire relied heavily on routine and procedure. Every alien military operation followed strict guidelines that made them easy to anticipate and counter. The humans used this predictability as a weapon, turning the Empire's own efficiency against them. Major Kim Sun-woo led one of the most successful infiltration teams operating deep inside Empire space. Her soldiers were experts in what humans called unconventional warfare. They could speak alien languages perfectly, forge Empire identification documents, and blend in with alien populations. "Our mission is not to win territory," she told her team as they prepared for another operation. "We are here to make them afraid to leave their home systems. Every attack, every sabotage operation, every intelligence-gathering mission makes them weaker." The human strategy was devastatingly effective. Instead of trying to match the Empire ship for ship and soldier for soldier, the humans attacked the foundation of alien military power. They destroyed supply lines, corrupted communication networks, eliminated key personnel, and spread fear throughout the Empire ranks. What made it worse for the aliens was that they could not retaliate effectively. The humans refused to engage in the direct battles that the Empire was designed to win. Instead, human forces would strike quickly at vulnerable targets and then vanish before the aliens could organize a response. Admiral Wang So-min coordinated these operations from her command ship, which moved constantly through human-controlled space. Her fleet used tactics borrowed from Earth, ocean warfare adapted for three-dimensional space combat. "We are not trying to destroy their entire military," she explained to her officers. "We are trying to make their military destroy itself. Every time they send ships to hunt us, they weaken their defenses somewhere else. Every time they reinforce one sector, they leave another sector vulnerable." The humans had turned warfare into a game of chess played across multiple star systems. They would attack in one location to force the Empire to move forces there, then strike somewhere completely different while the aliens were out of position. Lieutenant Park Min-ji had become one of the most effective cyber warfare specialists in human space. Her job was to infiltrate Empire computer networks and gather intelligence about alien military operations. She worked from a facility that officially did not exist, using technology that could hack alien systems from light years away. "The Empire uses centralized command structures," she reported during a briefing. "If we can disrupt their communication networks, their fleets cannot coordinate effectively. We can make them fight." Blind human cyber attacks began targeting Empire communication relays throughout their territory. The aliens found that their ships could not talk to each other. Their commanders could not coordinate operations, and their supply requests disappeared into electronic chaos. The psychological warfare was just as effective. Empire soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds without fear suddenly found themselves afraid to go on routine patrols. They never knew when human infiltrators might strike, when their supply shipments might be attacked, or when their communication systems might fail. General Yamamoto Kenji studied reports from across the war zone and smiled with satisfaction. The Empire was beginning to collapse from within, exactly as the humans had planned. They built their entire civilization around the idea that they were the strongest force in the galaxy, he observed. Now that they know there is something stronger, they do not know how to adapt. The Empire had never learned to fight a defensive war because they had never needed to. Their entire military doctrine was based on offensive operations against weaker enemies. When faced with an enemy that was smarter and more adaptable than they were, the aliens discovered that all their advantages meant nothing. Human forces began liberating Empire-conquered worlds using the same tactics that had proven so effective. The humans would arrive at a planet, make contact with local resistance groups, and provide them with weapons and training that turned colonial populations into effective guerrilla fighters. Captain Lee Hyun now commanded liberation operations across multiple star systems. He had learned that many species conquered by the Empire had never stopped, hoping for freedom. They just needed someone to show them that the Empire could be beaten. "We do not need to fight their battles for them," he explained to his staff. "We just need to show them that the Empire is not invincible. Once they see that human technology can defeat alien weapons, they will do the rest themselves." The liberation campaigns were incredibly successful because they used the Empire's own momentum against them. Every world that rebelled forced the Empire to send troops to restore control. Every troop deployment weakened their defenses elsewhere. Every act of resistance inspired other conquered species to rebel. Within 6 months of the original invasion attempt, the Korthak Empire found itself fighting wars on dozens of fronts. Simultaneously, their fleets were stretched thin, their supply lines were constantly under attack, and their communication networks were failing. Morale among Empire forces collapsed as word spread that the invincible Korthak military was being defeated. By a species they had intended to enslave, alien soldiers began surrendering rather than fighting, and entire fleets defected to join the human alliance. Commander Vextar received reports of disasters from across the Empire, but there was nothing he could do to stop them. The humans had turned the entire galaxy into a battlefield, and the Empire was losing on every front. The species that had once terrorized the galaxy now found itself terrified of shadows, knowing that human hunters could be anywhere at any time. The age of Empire dominance was ending, and the age of human liberation had begun. 1 year after the failed invasion of Earth, Commander Vexitar sat in a simple chair across from President Yoon Seoha in what had once been an Empire command station. The station now flew human flags and served as a neutral meeting place for peace negotiations. The former Empire commander looked like he had aged decades in just 12 months of fighting humans. His once proud uniform was faded, and his 4 eyes held the hollow look of someone who had seen his entire world view destroyed. "These terms are completely unacceptable," he said for the 20th time that day. "You are demanding that we release all conquered worlds, pay massive reparations, and submit to human oversight of our remaining territory." President Yoon looked up from her documents with the patient expression of someone explaining something obvious to a stubborn child. "Commander, I think you are still confused about your situation. You are not negotiating from a position of strength. You are negotiating to prevent the complete destruction of what remains of your civilization." To prove her point, she activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the former Korthak Empire. What had once been a territory spanning hundreds of star systems was now reduced to less than 30 worlds. Most of the Empire fleet had been destroyed or captured, and dozens of conquered species had declared their independence. How she asked the question that had haunted Vextar for months. How did a single world do this to us? President Yoon smiled. "You misunderstood what you were looking at. Commander, Earth is not just a single world. Earth is the home of a species that has spent its entire history learning how to fight enemies that are bigger and stronger. We have been at war with each other for thousands of years, and every conflict taught us something new about tactics, strategy, and survival." She stood up and walked to a wall display that showed images from human history, battles fought with spears, and swords conflicts decided by gunpowder and steel world wars that involved entire continents, and finally the secret preparation for interstellar combat. When we finally had a common enemy, we applied everything we had learned. We took the lessons from every human war and adapted them for fighting in space against alien technology. The peace treaty that President Yoon placed on the table was known throughout the galaxy as the Soul Accords. The terms were simple, but devastating for the Empire. All conquered worlds would be granted immediate independence. All Empire military forces would be reduced to planetary defense. Only all war criminals would be turned over to human authorities for trial. All reparations would be paid over a period of 50 years. In exchange, the humans would provide protection against other galactic threats and share certain technologies that would help the former Empire worlds.